right, we're nearly there. Question 15, it's the same for both textbooks, so it's 15 for all of you. F of x is x squared plus x take 3. G of x is the absolute value of x. So if we have a look at A, why isn't that red? Then, well, we obviously want to find g of 0, so that's the absolute value of 0, which is just 0. We want to find f of 0, which is 0 squared plus 0 take 3, which is negative 3. We want to find g of negative 2, which is the absolute value of negative 2, which is just 2, because the absolute value just turns anything that's negative to positive. And we want to find f of negative 2, which means we've got negative 2 squared plus negative 2 take 3, 4 take 5, negative 1. Okay, which means f of g of 0 is the same as f of, well, g of 0 was 0, which means we've got 0 squared plus 0 take 3, which is negative 3. G of f of 0, which is the same as g of, well, f of 0 was negative 3, which gave me the absolute value of negative 3, which is 3. F of g of negative 2 is the same as f of 2, which gives me 2 squared plus 2 take 3, which gives me 3. And finally, g of f of negative 2 equals g of, well, f of negative 2 was negative 1. So I've got the absolute value of negative 1, which is 1. Okay. B is where it actually gets interesting. If we know x is greater than or equal to 0, we want f of g of x. Now g of x was the absolute value of x, so we want f of the absolute value of x. But x is greater than or equal to 0, so the absolute value of x is just going to be x, because x is not negative. It's greater than or equal to 0, so it's always just going to be itself. So f of g of x is actually just going to be the same as f of x. X squared plus x take 3. Next one, not so easy. This one tells us x is less than 0. So negative. Again, f of g of x is the same as f of the absolute value of x. But we don't want to use absolute value signs. X is less than 0, so the absolute value of x, really it was just turning it into a positive. So that's the same as negative x. So if x is like negative 3, negative 3 is positive 3, yeah? So f of g of x then is the same as f of negative x. So here we have negative x squared plus negative x take 3. So we've got negative x squared is just x squared take x take 3. And that's question 15.